Hey friends, as you may know, with Checkly you can reduce your incident response times. But how does it work? With synthetic monitoring, you can check and test your APIs and most critical user flows on a schedule and receive timely and accurate alerts. And we have some big news. A new check type just entered the stage, multi-step checks. And if you want to learn how this new check type can help you to stay on top of your game, this video is for you. Let's go. We're here in my Checkly account, and as you see, I already have quite a little bit of synthetic monitoring going. Here at the bottom, I have two browser checks that leverage Playwright and Headless Chrome to check for critical application flows that are on our website. Then I have one API check that monitors one API endpoint of our own Checkly API. And here we have our new check type, a multi-step check. And this check here is not only monitoring one, not two, but three API endpoints in a single run. And this is possible because multi-step checks are highly programmable and allow you to chain and make multiple API requests and even run custom code to validate all your responses. And the best way to find out how this new check type works is by creating a new one from scratch. To do that, press the big blue plus button in the top left corner, choose your check type. So again, we have browser checks, API checks, and the new multi-step checks. And after clicking it, you always can choose from a ready-to-use template. And all these templates here give you the code and show you how you can control your new multi-step checks. But I prefer to start from scratch. So let's hit this button. Now we are greeted with an example that uses the SpaceX data API, and it already does multiple API calls. But I would like to test the Checkly API itself. So let's get all of this out here and let's paste a minimal example to show you the core functionality of multi-step checks. If you have experience with Checkly's browser checks to control Headless Chrome, you will immediately feel at home because multi-step checks are also leveraging Playwright's test runner so that you can use the usual test and expect functionality that you already have in your end-to-end browser checks. So in this multi-step check, we're defining a single test case that is called verify REST API. I have some variables already set up that I will need to talk to the Checkly API. And then we want to monitor our own RESTful API, which means that we want to create a resource. Then we want to get it and retrieve it to check if it was properly created. And afterwards, we want to clean up after ourselves and delete this resource. And these three API calls should be made in a single check run that runs on a schedule in the Checkly cloud. So how could we make our first request? To provide clear and actionable information, Checkly's multi-step checks rely on Playwright's test.step method. So let's add the steps to our test case. And luckily, I already have a test step in my clipboard. So here we have Playwright's test step. This is an async function. You always have to await it. And let's add some more here for the get call and also for the delete call. So here we will have a post call. Here we will have a get call. And here we will have a delete call. All these are the HTTP methods that we're planning to use in our multi-step check. And if we now want to, we can already run our new check to see the three steps included in our new check. So here we have post, get, and delete. So the grouping already works. But when we click on these, there's no actual information yet because, well, our steps are empty right now. So let's fill them with life. When we inspect our test definition, verify REST API, here we already have native Playwright functionality to make some requests. The request fixture from Playwright allows us to go into our test steps and quickly make some requests. So let's go over this line by line. By using request from Playwright, we are able to make a post request to our base URL, which I defined here on top, API checklyhq.com v1. Then we're posting against the check groups path. We're defining some meta information, some headers that I also have defined here on top. And then we're waiting for the response, which is available here. And we're checking that there was an OK status code. So created, OK, any green status code will do. And then we're returning the JSON from this post request. When we now return something here in our test step, we can assign this to a variable on top here. So let's say const created group equals this test step. And with this now, we have the foundation to go on with our steps. And I could now already prove that this works, but if I would run this check, I would create a resource that I have to delete manually later. So let's move on and jump ahead to our delete step. When we go now into our test step delete, we can go into this function, and similarly, we can also use the request object that we again have from Playwright. And this one now comes with a delete method. Similarly, we're reusing the base URL, the check groups, and here we have the result of our first HTTP call that we had here in this created group variable. So with this, we can now make a delete call, and we also check if there was a green status code. And with these two steps in place, we can run our check again, and let's see what we get. When we now inspect our results, we see here that we have our post step that now shows us that there was a post request. And when we inspect it further, we see here the response time. We see here the assertion. This was the first one. Expect to be okay. And then we see detailed timings of this particular HTTP request. Additionally, we can inspect response body, request body, headers, query parameters, and all the usual configurations that you are used to from API monitoring. When we now scroll down, there's also our delete call. So when we inspect this one, here we have delete. This one was a very quick one. And similarly, we again have our assertion expect to be okay, and also all the response and request bodies, headers, parameters. So we have here multiple API checks in a single multi-step check. And I think this is pretty cool because I can now sequentially run multiple API calls, and I can control what is happening, what is checked programmatically. So let's finish up our first multi-step check by filling out the get step, because see, this one is empty right now. So let me get into this step again, and also I have a snippet for this. So here we have, similarly, we're making get call, again, our API route, that is check groups. We again reusing created group, and then we check if the response status code is okay. And because we have now our checks and API calls in code, we can also be very flexible with our assertions and with our quality checks. So when I now go to our first step, I could also go in, I could define a new variable, let's call it body, and I will await the response.json. And now I could add a new custom assertion and say, okay, expect body ID to be defined. You see what I'm doing here? Because we have everything in code, you can add your custom logic to validate all the responses of your API calls. And I think this is beautiful. So let me make a tiny adjustment here and return body now instead, because I already have that work done. Let me remove this comment and let's run our multi-step check again. So when this comes back, we see that our verify REST API multi-step check includes now 3 steps, 1 post request, 1 get request, and 1 delete request. And when we inspect the post request, we see here the timings again, but we also see our added assertion. So here we have the first one, expect to be okay, which is this one. And then there's the second assertion that defines that we expected this body ID to be defined. And we have a nice little green check mark here. So with multi-step checks, we visualize whatever is defined in your test steps to make it more accessible. But with this setup, I think we are good to go. Let's give this a proper name. Let's call this REST API check groups. And now we can create checks, and this now will run on a schedule. Let's see, it is now running every 10 minutes. And if something isn't working properly, my general alert settings will give me a shout that something is broken with the Checkly API. So let's apply and close. Let's hit save another time, and let's go back to our home dashboard. So here we now see all our synthetic monitoring. Here's our new REST API checks group check, but there's not yet much to see. So let's open up this one that I already prepared earlier. Here we have all the results similarly to the one multi-step check that I just created. Here we have our check results, and I was intentionally breaking this check earlier today. And also here, right down, here we have the timings of our 3 steps visualized. And I think this is super, super nice. But in summary, Checkly's new multi-step checks allow you to schedule and run multiple API requests in sequence and assert and check that your APIs are responding with the correct values. If you want to learn more, as always, head over to the docs at checklyhq.com/docs multi-step checks. There are more snippets and more information on how you control all your flexible multi-step checks. So now that you know what multi-step checks are, there's only one last question. Do multi-step checks work with the Checkly CLI and monitoring as code? And of course they do. You can do all the things that I just have shown you from the command line in your environment and put your synthetic monitoring in version control. If you haven't used monitoring as code for your synthetic monitoring, I will place a link to another video in the description below. And that's all I have for you today. These are Checkly's new multi-step checks. Let us know what you think of them. And if you have any questions or feedback, drop them below or join our Checkly community Slack. That is available at checklyhq.com/Slack. And I promise you, we're a lovely bunch. And I will be back next week with more on synthetic monitoring, API monitoring, or generally shipping good stuff on the web. I will see you then.